I was 71 years old, sitting in a doctor's waiting room, when my daughter's voice came through the phone. Cold, almost mechanical. "Mom, we're going to Europe tomorrow. I already sold your beach house and your car. We needed the money. Bye." 45 years. 45 years of sacrifices, of late nights, of putting her needs before mine. And she discarded me like garbage in a 2-minute phone call. But I smiled, because there was something my dear daughter didn't know, something my husband Robert had hidden from both of us, something that was waiting for me at home in a manila envelope I'd forgotten about. Let me tell you how I went from a discarded widow to teaching my daughter the most expensive lesson of her life. My name is Antonia Brooks. 6 months ago, my husband died at our breakfast table. One moment, he was kissing my forehead, saying, "Good morning, my love." The next, he was gone. Heart attack. Instant. Those were his last words to me. Since then, Angela had been visiting 3 times a week. She helped with funeral arrangements, took me grocery shopping, even suggested I see a doctor for a checkup. "Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she'd say. That smile I thought was love. It was convenience. The beach house had been our sanctuary. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15. Every summer we'd go there building memories. Birthdays, Christmases. She'd bring boyfriends, then her husband Edward. I cooked, cleaned, did laundry. Family tradition. I never thought she'd see it as just money. And Robert's truck. That old Ford he washed every Sunday, maintained like his own child. She knew what it meant to me. His scent still lingered on the seats. The last piece of him I had left. When she hung up, I stayed in that uncomfortable green plastic chair, surrounded by sick people coughing, magazines rustling, fluorescent lights humming. And for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Something strange happened inside me, a calm I hadn't felt since Robert's death. Because I remembered something I'd completely forgotten. 3 days before he died, Robert handed me a manila envelope. "Antonia, put this in your dresser drawer. If something happens to me, open it after a while. Only when you're ready." I'd put it away without much thought. After the funeral, drowning in grief and arrangements, I simply forgot. But it was waiting for me at home. The nurse called me. The doctor examined me, said I was healthy for my age, needed rest and better food. I nodded, smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about that envelope, about the coldness in Angela's voice, about how Edward was probably behind everything. He'd never liked me, always saw me as a nuisance. I left and walked to the bus stop. I no longer had a car, according to Angela. But as I waited, I couldn't help but smile. There was something poetic about all of this. My daughter thought she'd left me with nothing. What she didn't know was that Robert had always been a man who planned ahead. The bus arrived. I sat by the window watching the city pass. Houses, stores, people rushing with their own tragedies, their own secrets. I had mine too, and I was about to discover them. When I got home, I went straight to my bedroom, opened the dresser drawer. There it was, the manila envelope exactly where I'd left it. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I could feel several documents inside. Robert's neat handwriting on the front, my name. I sat on the bed we'd shared for so many years. Outside, darkness was filling the house with those familiar shadows that no longer scared me. I opened it slowly, like unwrapping a birthday gift. What I found inside took my breath away. Legal documents, deeds, bank certificates, and a handwritten letter from Robert. "My dear Antonia, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I was alive, but I wanted to protect you from worries. Over the years, I invested our savings in properties and businesses. We don't just have the beach house. We have 6 other properties, including the apartment building where Angela and Edward live. We also have shares in 3 companies worth more than you can imagine. You are rich, my love. You always were, but now you are on paper too." I stared at the papers, my vision blurring. Deeds to houses in different neighborhoods, a downtown condo, a small coastal motel, the 20-story apartment building where my daughter lived. Robert had been the silent owner for 10 years, everything in the name of a company I didn't know about, and I was the sole heir. Bank statements for accounts I never knew existed, numbers that seemed unreal. Robert had been a bus driver for 40 years, but apparently he'd also been a very smart investor. Every penny we saved, every sacrifice we made, he'd multiplied in silence. The letter continued, "You know our daughter, Antonia. If she knew we had this much money, her attitude would change. I want her to love us for who we are, not what we have." The irony was crushing. Our daughter had abandoned us, thinking we had nothing, when in reality, we had everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house, touching old furniture, knickknacks Angela had always criticized as outdated. I looked at family photos on the walls, especially the one where she was 5 years old, sitting on Robert's lap, laughing. Where did that sweet girl go? When did she become so cold, so calculating? The next morning, early, the phone rang. Angela again. Her voice softer, but I'd learned to be wary of those shifts in tone. "Mom, how are you? I wanted to tell you we transferred the money from the house and the car. We deposited your share. It's not much, but it'll help you live for a few months while you look for something smaller." My share. 30%, she continued. "That's fair, right? We need the money for our investment in Europe. Edward has an incredible business opportunity. 30% of my own things. How generous. When do you leave?" I kept my voice calm. "This afternoon. Bags are already packed. We'll be gone at least 6 months, maybe more if the business goes well. But don't worry, Mom. When we get back, we'll help you find a small apartment, something that fits your needs." Fits my needs, as if she knew what my needs were. "Have a safe trip, Angela." "Oh, Mom, I knew you'd understand. You've always been so compassionate. We love you so much." She hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, and for the first time in months, I laughed. I laughed like I hadn't since Robert died. The situation was absurd, comical. My daughter had robbed me, kicked me out of my own house, talked to me with unbearable condescension, all to fund a European adventure that would probably be a disaster. But what bothered me most wasn't the money. It was the ease with which she discarded me. 45 years of my life dedicated to her, of sacrifice, of unconditional love, and she'd erased me from her life with a 2-minute phone call. I checked my bank account online. Sure enough, they deposited an amount that probably seemed generous to them, a mockery to me. They'd sold the beach house for much less than it was worth, needed cash quickly. Robert's truck for a pittance. That afternoon, I watched from my window as Angela and Edward loaded suitcases into a cab. 2 huge bags, an expensive carry-on. They laughed, kissed, made plans like teenagers, excited for adventure. They never looked toward my window, never said goodbye. When the cab drove away, I sat in the kitchen with tea and Robert's documents spread on the table. I could call a lawyer, reclaim everything, get back what they'd taken. But something told me there was a better way, a more educational way. I called Mr. Peterson, the lawyer who'd handled Robert's affairs. He'd told me at the funeral to call if I ever needed anything. Well, now I needed him. "Mrs. Brooks, it's good to hear from you. How are you? I need to see you urgently. I found some documents from Robert that I don't quite understand. You can come tomorrow morning. I'll be there." That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. I dreamed of Robert, sitting in his favorite chair reading the newspaper, just like every morning. When he saw me, he smiled. "It's about time, my love. It's about time you stood up for yourself." I woke up with a strange feeling. Not exactly happiness, not the sadness I'd felt for months. Determination. For the first time since Robert's death, I had a clear purpose. I was going to get back what was mine, but not in the way Angela expected. The next morning, I dressed with care. My wine-colored dress, the one Robert always said made me look elegant, fixed my hair, a little makeup. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in a long time. I saw strength. Mr. Peterson's office was downtown, old but elegant building, marble floors, large windows. He greeted me warmly, but when I showed him the documents, his expression changed completely. "Mrs. Brooks, this is much more than I imagined. Robert was a very smart man." "I know, Mr. Peterson. I've already reviewed them. What I need to know is what I can do legally." He explained that everything was in order. The documents were legitimate. I was the rightful owner of all those properties. He also confirmed what I'd suspected. The sale of the beach house was illegal. Angela had no right to sell it. We can get the house back immediately, Mrs. Brooks. We can also proceed with legal action against your daughter for fraud. No, Mr. Peterson, I don't want legal action. I want to do this another way. I want everything to remain secret for now. Can you help me? He looked at me with curiosity, nodded. Of course. You're my client. What do you need? I need you to discreetly get the beach house back, nullify that fraudulent sale. I need you to help me gain real control of all my properties, especially the building where my daughter lives. I understand. It'll take a few weeks, but it's completely feasible. Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, I need no one to know I'm behind this, at least for now. When I left his office, I felt as if I'd woken from a very long dream. I had a plan. The following weeks were the strangest of my life. Officially, I was a poor widow abandoned by her daughter. In secret, I was a rich woman silently orchestrating the recovery of my assets. Mr. Peterson worked efficiently. Every few days, he'd call with updates. I stayed in my house. It was mine, after all. Though Angela probably expected me to move into a single room. Every morning I'd wake up, have breakfast at the same table where Robert and I had shared so many years, then walk through the neighborhood. The neighbors greeted me with that mix of pity and curiosity reserved for recent widows. Aurora, my lifelong neighbor, approached one afternoon while I watered plants. Antonia, dear, is it true Angela went to Europe and left you all alone? Yes, Aurora. She went with Edward. Business plans. And how are you going to live, sweetie? We all know Robert didn't leave much money. If you only knew, I thought. Don't worry, Aurora. I'll be fine. Do you need anything? I can bring food, help with groceries. You're very kind, but I'm fine. Really. Aurora looked at me with that expression I knew well. Compassion mixed with relief that it wasn't her tragedy. These conversations repeated constantly. The butcher, the baker, the corner store lady. Everyone spoke with that soft tone they use with the unfortunate. I'd nod, smile, thank them. But inside, a part of me enjoyed this performance. It was like living a double life. Mr. Peterson called one Wednesday morning. Mrs. Brooks, I have good news. I nullified the sale of the beach house. The buyers didn't know the sale was fraudulent, so they got their money back without problems. The house is yours again. Excellent, Mr. Peterson. And the building where Angela lives? That's more complicated. Technically, you've always been the owner through the company, but we need administrative changes for direct control. Another 2 weeks. Perfect. Keep me informed. I hung up and sat with my coffee, thinking about Angela. 3 weeks in Europe. Not a call, not a message, not even a postcard. To her, I'd ceased to exist the moment she got her money. But that was going to change soon. I decided to visit the beach house. I took the bus to the coast. The same route Robert and I had taken hundreds of times. The house was exactly as I remembered. Small, cream-colored, porch overlooking the ocean. The new owners had put potted plants on the steps. Otherwise, everything was the same. I sat on the curb across the street and looked at it for an hour. Remembered summer afternoons when Angela was little, running on the beach, building sandcastles, Robert grilling fish while I made salads, Angela bringing friends, boyfriends, then Edward. All those happy moments she'd reduced to a simple transaction. An older gentleman came out of the house, saw me sitting there, approached with curiosity. Are you okay, ma'am? Yes, thank you. I'm just remembering. I knew the former owners very well. What a shame about what happened. They told us the elderly lady was very sick and needed to sell fast. We thought it was a steal. Turns out the sale wasn't legal. We had to give the house back. Did you know them personally? No, everything through intermediaries. They told us the daughter was handling everything because the mother couldn't. What a sad situation. If you only knew how sad, I thought. I left with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money that hurt. It was the ease with which Angela had lied about me, made up a story about my illness, used my supposed vulnerability to justify her actions. To her, I wasn't a person with feelings. I was an obstacle to be removed. That night, I called Mr. Peterson again. I need you to help me with something else. I want Robert's truck back too. That'll be more difficult, Mrs. Brooks. The truck was in your name, but your daughter had power of attorney allowing her to sell it. How is that possible? Apparently, you signed that power of attorney a few months ago, after your husband's death. Don't you remember? There it was, the moment Angela started planning all this. I vaguely remembered signing papers she'd brought, telling me they were to facilitate funeral and inheritance arrangements. I'd been so confused by grief that I signed without reading. How naive. Is there any way to get it back? We can try, but it's more complicated. We'd need to prove you signed under deception or coercion. Let's do it. I want back everything they took from me. Over the next few weeks, I developed a strange routine. Mornings. I was the poor widow everyone knew, buying necessities, talking to neighbors, keeping up appearances. Afternoons, I became a businesswoman, studying Robert's documents, talking to Mr. Peterson, planning my next move. I learned things about finance I never thought I'd need to know. I discovered Robert had been much smarter than I thought. Every investment carefully calculated. The building where Angela lived wasn't just profitable from rent. It was in an area rapidly appreciating. I also discovered Edward had a lot of debt. He'd taken loans using the apartment as collateral, not knowing he wasn't the real owner. When the banks figured this out, he'd be in serious trouble. Mr. Peterson called one Friday with important news. "Mrs. Brooks, we've finished all the paperwork. You now have total control of all your properties." I also got Robert's truck back. The buyer was an acquaintance of mine. When I explained the situation, he agreed to return it for small compensation. "Excellent work, Mr. Peterson. Now I need you to help me with one more thing. I want you to send a letter to my daughter." "What kind of letter?" "An eviction notice." Silence on the other end. "Mrs. Brooks, are you sure you want to do this?" "Completely sure. She decided I wasn't important in her life. Now she's going to find out how important I really am." "I understand. Do you want me to send it to Europe?" "No. Give it to her when she gets back. I have a feeling it's going to be very soon." I wasn't wrong. That same afternoon, Aurora came running with fresh neighborhood news. "Antonia, did you know Edward's in trouble with the bank? My brother-in-law who works there told me they're investigating loans he took using the apartment as collateral, but it turns out the apartment isn't his." "Really?" "Yes, and it seems Angela didn't know anything. They're saying she'll have to come back from Europe to sort this mess out." What a complicated situation. Yes, and the worst part, apparently Edward lied about the business in Europe. There was no business. He just wanted to escape his debts. Perfect. Everything was working out exactly as I'd expected. Angela had trusted Edward, sacrificed her relationship with me for him. And now she was discovering he wasn't the man she thought he was. That night, I sat on the porch with tea and looked at the stars. Robert used to say stars were souls of people who'd lived full lives, watching over their families from the sky. If that was true, then he was up there watching his plan unfold perfectly. "Thank you, my love," I said to the sky. "Thank you for taking care of me even after your death." The next day, Mr. Peterson called early. "Mrs. Brooks, I have news. Your daughter just arrived in the country. She's at the airport, alone." "Alone?" "Yes. Apparently Edward stayed in Europe. Rumors of a very big fight." "I see. Did you send the letter?" "I'm sending it today. She should receive it tomorrow." I hung up and stood in the kitchen, feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. After so many weeks of silent planning, the moment for the first real move had finally arrived. Angela was about to discover that her mother was not the defenseless victim she believed. Angela arrived at her apartment Tuesday night. I knew because Aurora, who seemed to have informants throughout the neighborhood, came to tell me the next day. "Antonia, your daughter came back last night. I saw her go in with one suitcase. She looked terrible. Pale, dark circles, like she'd been crying the whole flight. Alone? Completely alone. And something strange. When the doorman asked for her keys, she didn't have them. Had to ask the superintendent to let her in with the emergency copy." Interesting. Edward had the keys, which meant he'd probably decided not to come back. Or maybe Angela discovered something about him and fled. Either way, my daughter was back. And very soon she'd receive my little welcome gift. Mr. Peterson called that afternoon. "Mrs. Brooks, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The doorman confirmed your daughter received it in person." "Perfect. How long did we give her?" 30 days to vacate. as per legal standards. But Mrs. Brooks, are you sure you want to do this? She is your daughter after all. Mr. Peterson, my daughter kicked me out of my own house with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my things without asking. She treated me like garbage. Now she's going to learn that actions have consequences. I understand. I just wanted to make sure you'd considered all the implications. I have considered them. All of them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake imagining Angela's face when she read the letter. The initial confusion, then disbelief, then panic. She'd probably think it was a mistake, someone trying to scam her. But when she called to verify, she'd discover everything was completely legal. The next day, as if she'd been waiting, the phone rang at 8 in the morning. Angela, her voice desperate. Mom, I need to talk to you urgently. Good morning, honey. How was Europe? Mom, I don't have time for that. I received a very strange letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. It must be a mistake, right? Do you know anything about this? An eviction notice? How strange. From whom? From a company I've never heard of. It's called, wait, let me find the letter. Robert Investments, Inc. Do you know this company? Robert had used his own name for the company. How poetic. No, honey, I've never heard that name. Are you sure the letter's legitimate? That's what I want to find out. Mom, I need you to help me. I don't know what to do. Edward left me in Europe. He ran off with another woman, and now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening. There was the confirmation. Edward had abandoned her. Probably when the money ran out, or when he realized the legal problems at home were more serious than he thought. Poor Angela. She'd sacrificed her family for a worthless man. I'm so sorry, honey. Where are you now? I'm in the apartment, but I don't know for how long. Mom, can I come see you? I need to. I need to talk to someone. I don't have anyone else. The irony was perfect. Now that she was left without the man for whom she'd abandoned me, she remembered she had a mother. Of course, honey. Come over whenever you want. I'm on my way. I hung up and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this performance. I put on my most conservative gray dress, tied my hair in a simple bun, practiced my expression of worried but resigned mother. When Angela arrived, she'd see exactly what she expected, a poor father and a single mother. That night, I hung up and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this performance. I put on my most conservative gray dress, tied my hair in a simple bun, practiced my expression of worried but resigned mother. When Angela arrived, she'd see exactly what she expected. Vulnerable widow who'd been abandoned by her own daughter. Angela arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was surprised at how bad she looked. Lost weight, deep circles under her eyes, expensive clothes wrinkled and unkempt, eyes red from crying. Mom, she said. For a moment, I thought she'd hug me, but she stopped, as if suddenly remembering how things had ended between us. Come in, honey. Do you want coffee? Yes, please. We sat in the kitchen, at the same table where I'd read Robert's documents weeks ago. Angela looked small in that chair, lost, just like when she was a child coming to tell me about school problems. Mom, I'm so sorry for the way I left. I know I didn't treat you well. It's in the past, honey. No, it's not. I treated you badly. I said horrible things. And now, her voice broke. Now I have no one. What happened with Edward? He left with a 25-year-old hotel waitress in Paris. It turns out there was never any business in Europe. It was all a lie. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here and use the money from the sale of your house to fund his adventure. All the debts? Yes, Mom. So many debts. It seems he'd been taking out loans for years, using the apartment we lived in as collateral. But now I find out he wasn't the owner of the apartment. How is that possible? Here was my opportunity. I don't know, honey. Property matters are very complicated. The problem is that now the banks are coming after me for his debts. They say since we were married, I'm also responsible. And on top of that, this eviction notice. Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't have money. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to live. She started to cry. Real tears. Genuine desperation. For a moment, my mother's heart softened. I wanted to hug her, console her, tell her everything would be okay. But then I remembered the coldness in her voice when she called me from the doctor's office, the ease with which she discarded me, the way she talked to me as if I were a burden. Did you talk to a lawyer about the letter? I don't have money for a lawyer, Mom. We spent all the money in Europe. Edward took what little was left when he ran off. So what are you going to do? I don't know. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I find a job and can get a small place to live. There was the question I'd been waiting for. After kicking me out of my own house, after selling my things, after treating me like garbage, she now wanted me to rescue her. She wanted the poor widow she'd created to save her from the consequences of her own actions. Of course, honey, this will always be your home. Angela looked at me with surprise, as if she hadn't expected it to be so easy. Really, Mom? After everything that happened? You are my daughter, Angela. That will never change. She got up. This time she hugged me, a desperate hug from someone drowning, clinging to the only thing they can find. I hugged her back, but not with unconditional love from before. Now there was calculation in my embrace, strategy. Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden. Don't worry about that now. Rest, recover, then we'll see what your options are. Angela left that afternoon to get things from her apartment. I stayed in the kitchen, thinking about how easy it had been. She'd come to me exactly as I'd planned. Broken, desperate, with no options. And best of all, she suspected nothing. To her, I was still the poor, abandoned mother who needed her compassion. But this was only the first part of my plan. Having her live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I was going to let her settle in, feel safe, believe she'd found refuge in my house. And then, when she least expected it, I was going to teach her the difference between being poor by choice and being poor by consequence. That night, I called Mr. Peterson. I need you to do something else for me. Tell me, Mrs. Brooks. I want you to investigate Edward's debts. I want to know exactly how much he owes, to whom, and what legal options I have to separate them from my daughter. That'll take time, but it's feasible. Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, keep this an absolute secret. No one can know I'm behind this investigation. Of course, may I ask what your final plan is? My plan is very simple. I'm going to save my daughter. But first, she has to understand what it truly means to hit rock bottom. When I hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine Robert had been saving for special occasions. It had been a long time since I'd had an occasion this special. The game had begun, and for the first time in months, I had all the good cards in my hand. Angela moved in the next day. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box, all that was left of her previous life. I watched her unpack in her old room, the same one she'd slept in during her teenage years. I could see the humiliation in every movement. She'd gone from living in a luxury condo to taking refuge in her childhood bedroom. "Mom, I found this in the apartment," she said, showing me a manila envelope. It was among Edward's things. "It has your name on it." It was another one of Robert's envelopes. My heart sped up, but I kept my composure. My name? How strange. Yes, look, she showed me. Indeed, my name in Robert's handwriting. But this envelope was different from the one I'd found in my dresser. Smaller, newer. "Maybe Edward found it among Dad's things when he died and forgot to give it to you," Angela said. "It's possible. Can I see it?" I opened it in her presence. Inside was a short letter and a small key. "Antonia, if you're reading this after receiving the main envelope, it means our daughter is going through a difficult time. This key opens safety deposit box 247 at the Central Bank downtown branch. There's something there that can help you help her. But use it wisely. With eternal love, Robert." Angela read over my shoulder. A safety deposit box? Dad had a safety deposit box? I had no idea. I didn't either, I lied. Your father never told me about this. Do you think we should go see what's in there? I don't know, honey. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are. But Mom, maybe there's something important. Documents, or I don't know, maybe something valuable that can help us. The desperation in her voice was palpable. Angela was clinging to any possibility of finding a way out, and I was going to let her cling a little longer before showing her the complete reality. "Okay," I said after a calculated pause. "We can go tomorrow." That night, Angela and I had dinner together for the first time in months. She'd cooked, trying to be useful. but the food tasted of guilt and desperation. She told me more details about Europe, each story worse than the last. Edward lied about everything, Mom. Not just the business, the debts too. I thought he only owed a little money. Turns out he owes over $100,000. And the worst part, he used my name for some loans without me knowing. How is that possible? He forged my signature. When I married him, I gave him documents to handle our joint account banking. I never thought he'd use them for this. Do you have any way to prove you didn't know? I don't know. It's all so complicated. The banks say since we were married, I'm responsible for all his debts anyway. And the divorce? I don't even know where Edward is now. He just disappeared. His phone's disconnected. He doesn't answer emails. Nothing. Like he vanished. Perfect. Edward had run away like the rat he'd always been, leaving Angela to face the consequences alone. In a way, he'd done me a favor. Now my daughter was experiencing exactly what I had felt when she abandoned me. Betrayal by someone she'd completely trusted. I'm so sorry, honey. I didn't know things were so bad. I didn't either, Mom. I thought Edward loved me, that we were going to build something together. Turns out I was just an easy way for him to get money and documents. Angela started crying again. How could I have been so stupid? How did I not realize who he really was? It was tempting to tell her I'd seen the signs from the beginning, that I'd tried to warn her, that Edward never seemed trustworthy. But that would break my facade as a compassionate, vulnerable mother. Love can be blinding sometimes, honey. Don't blame yourself. But Mom, I didn't just ruin my life. I ruined yours too. I treated you horribly. I took your house, your truck, your things, all to give to a man who abandoned me at the first opportunity. Now we're two poor women trying to survive because of me. It's in the past, Angela. We'll be okay. No, it's not. We're both in trouble because of my mistakes. You lost everything Dad left you. I lost my marriage and my future. If she only knew that at this very moment I had more money than she could possibly imagine, that I was the owner of the building where she'd lived, that I could solve all her problems with a single phone call. But it wasn't time yet. The next day, we went to the bank. Angela was nervous, hopeful. I maintained my act as a confused widow who didn't understand much about finance. The bank employee led us to the safety deposit boxes, verified my ID, opened box 247. Inside were jewels, many jewels, rings, necklaces, bracelets, earrings. I recognized some as heirlooms from Robert's family. Others were completely new to me. There was also a letter explaining the origin of each piece and approximate value. Angela gasped, Mom, this must be worth a fortune. You think so? Yes, look at this emerald. This pearl necklace. Mom, Dad saved a treasure here. According to Robert's letter, the jewels were worth approximately $200,000, a significant amount, but nothing compared to the rest of my assets. Like finding a few coins under the sofa when you have $1 million in the bank. What do we do with this, Mom? I don't know, honey. They're family memories. But Mom, we could sell some pieces. With this money, you could get your beach house back, and I could pay off some of Edward's debts. There it was again. Even when she found something valuable, Angela's first reaction was to think about how to use it to solve the problems Edward had created. She hadn't learned a thing yet. Are you sure you want to use your father's inheritance to pay Edward's debts? What other option do I have, Mom? If I don't pay something soon, the banks are going to foreclose on everything I have, and technically I don't own anything. Everything was in Edward's name. Think carefully, honey. Once you sell these jewels, you won't be able to get them back. I know, but what else can I do? I can't get a job with all these legal claims pending. No employer's going to want to hire someone with so many legal problems. We took the jewels home. Angela spread them on the kitchen table, examined them one by one, calculating which she could sell and which she could keep. It was painful watching her reduce decades of family history to numbers on a spreadsheet. Over the following days, I watched Angela struggle with decisions she'd never had to make before. How to stretch money for food. How to negotiate with creditors. How to look for a job when your credit history is ruined. It was a cruel but necessary agitation. Mom, I went to 3 job interviews today, she told me one evening, coming home with swollen feet and a tired face. 2 told me they can't hire me because of the pending legal problems. The 3rd offered me a part-time job cleaning offices at night. Are you going to take it? I have no choice. It pays very little, but it's better than nothing. And I can work at night so I can keep looking for something better during the day. Seeing my daughter, who'd lived comfortably for over 40 years, preparing to clean offices at night broke my heart. But it also filled me with pride. She was finally facing reality without expecting someone else to solve her problems. Are you sure you can handle so much physical work? I'll have to learn. I can't keep being a burden to you, Mom. It's bad enough you're letting me live here for free. This is your home, Angela. No, Mom, this is your home. I'm here because of your generosity. But I'm not going to take advantage forever. One night, while Angela was on her first cleaning shift, Aurora came to visit. She sat in the kitchen with me, drinking tea, looking at family photos on the walls. Antonia, I have to ask you something. Did you know Angela was going to come back in these conditions? What do you mean? Well, when she left, she seemed so sure of herself, so arrogant, talked about the great life she'd have in Europe, how successful Edward was. And now she's back, completely broken, working a cleaning job, living with you again. Life takes many turns, Aurora. Yes, but there's something else. I've been watching Angela these days. She looks different, not just sad, but humble, as if she learned something important. Aurora had always been perceptive. What do you think she learned? I think she learned the value of things she'd taken for granted, like having a mother who loves her unconditionally. Maybe. Antonia, can I tell you something? When Angela left and treated you so badly, many of us thought you'd never forgive her. But here you are, taking care of her again, giving her a home when she has nowhere to go. She's my daughter, Aurora. Yes, but not every mother would do what you're doing, especially after being treated the way you were. If Aurora only knew the complete truth, that I had the power to solve all Angela's problems. What was choosing to let her suffer a little longer so she'd learn the full lesson. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I think you're doing what a good mother would do. But I also think Angela needs to fully understand what she lost when she abandoned you. What do you mean? I think she needs to value you not just as the mother who rescues her when she's in trouble, but as the strong woman who built a stable life for 45 years. She needs to respect you, not just need you. Aurora had hit the nail on the head. That was exactly the point of my entire plan. I didn't want Angela to come back to me out of desperation. I wanted her to come back out of genuine respect and mature love. That night when Angela returned from work, I saw her arrive tired but with a new dignity. She'd earned those few dollars with her own effort, and that meant something to her. How was your first day? Hard, but not as bad as I thought. The other ladies who work there helped me a lot. One of them, Mrs. Johnson, taught me tricks to clean more efficiently. Mrs. Johnson? Yes, she's 60 and has been cleaning offices for 20 years. She told me she started after her husband left her with 3 small children. Says it's not the job she dreamed of, but that it gave her independence and dignity. She sounds like a wise woman. She is. She said something that made me think. She told me there are 2 types of people who end up doing this job. The ones who are there because they never had opportunities, and the ones who are there because they ruined the opportunities they did have. She asked me which group I was in. What did you tell her? I told her the truth, that I had all the opportunities in the world, a family that loved me, a stable home, an inheritance, and I ruined it all following a worthless man. What did she say? She laughed and said, "Well, honey, then at least you know exactly why you're here. That puts you one step ahead of most people." Angela poured herself water and sat with me at the table. "Mom, I want you to know something. These past few weeks have been the hardest of my life, but also the most important. Why? Because I finally understand what really matters. It's not money. It's not living in the most luxurious apartment. It's not impressing people. It's having people who genuinely love you, who are there when everything falls apart." Angela, no, let me finish. You have every right to hate me for what I did. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I took everything Dad left you. I treated you as if you were a nuisance. And now I'm here again, expecting you to forgive me and take care of me. I already forgave you, honey. But I haven't forgiven myself. And I won't until I prove I've truly changed, that I've learned from my mistakes. Mr. Peterson called the next morning. "Mrs. Brooks, I have excellent news. The legal process is almost complete. We can get your daughter out of all of Edward's debts." It was time. After weeks of watching Angela struggle, work, and reflect on her mistakes, the moment had finally arrived to show her she'd never been alone, that she'd always had someone quietly watching over her. Mr. Peterson, I want you to organize a meeting. It's time for my daughter to know the whole truth. Mr. Peterson arranged the meeting for Friday morning at his office. I told Angela I'd made an appointment with a lawyer who could help with her legal problems, but didn't explain details. She agreed to come, though nervous about the cost. Mom, I don't have money to pay a lawyer. I barely have enough to cover basic expenses. Don't worry about that now, honey. Let's just hear what he has to say. We arrived on time. Angela had dressed in her best clothes, which now looked a little big on her thinner body. She was nervous, wringing her hands, expecting another piece of bad news on her endless list of problems. Mr. Peterson greeted us with his usual professional smile. Mrs. Brooks, Miss Brooks, thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing us, Angela replied. Though I should warn you, my financial situation is very complicated, and I probably can't afford high fees. That's exactly what we're going to talk about, Mr. Peterson said, exchanging a look with me. But first, I need you to review these documents. He handed Angela a thick folder. She opened it and began reading, her expression gradually changing from confusion to surprise. I don't understand. These documents say Edward forged my signature, that there's evidence of fraud, that I'm not responsible for the debts. That's right. We've been investigating your case for the past few weeks. We found enough evidence to prove you were a victim of identity fraud. But how is that possible? Who paid for this investigation? I don't have money for this. Mr. Peterson looked at me. It was my moment. Angela, there's something I need to tell you. What, Mom? I took a deep breath. After weeks of acting, I was finally going to reveal the truth. Your father left me more than you knew. Much more. What do you mean? Peterson, show her the other documents. He took out a second folder and handed it to Angela. This time, the documents were property deeds, bank statements, investment certificates. The entire fortune Robert had built in secret. Angela read in silence for several minutes. Her face went through a complete range of emotions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally, comprehension. Mom, this says you're the owner of the building where I lived. Yes. And that you have other properties, bank accounts, investments? Yes. This means when I sold the beach house, it was your house. The sale was fraudulent. I already got it back. Angela stared at the papers, trying to process the information. How long have you known this? Since the day you called me from the doctor's office. You knew all this when I came back from Europe asking for help. Yes. You knew you could solve all my problems when you saw me crying every night. Yes. There was a long, tense silence. Angela closed the folders and looked directly into my eyes. Why, Mom? Why did you let me suffer when you could have helped me? This was the question I'd been waiting for. Because you needed to learn something you couldn't learn any other way. What? You needed to learn the value of the things you'd lost. The value of family, of respect, of responsibility. When you abandoned me, it wasn't just money you took from me. It was dignity. It was love. It was trust. Angela started to cry, but they weren't tears of self-pity, like the ones she'd shed during these weeks. They were tears of deep understanding. I abandoned you when you needed me most. Yes. I treated you like garbage. Yes. And you saved me anyway. Yes. But not in a way you expected. I didn't save you by giving you money so you could keep making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit rock bottom so you could learn to save yourself. Mr. Peterson discreetly intervened. Miss Brooks, your mother has paid all legal expenses to free you from Edward's debts. She's also recovered all the properties that were sold fraudulently. You're completely free of legal problems. And the cleaning job I got? You can quit if you want, I said. But I hope you don't. Why? Because that job is teaching you something you never learned when everything was easy. It's teaching you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, the importance of valuing every dollar you earn. Angela wiped her tears and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the look of a daughter who needs her mother. It was the look of a grown woman who respects another woman. Do you forgive me, Mom? I forgave you a long time ago, honey. The question is, can you forgive yourself? I don't know if I can. I did unforgivable things. People make mistakes, Angela. The important thing is what we do after we recognize those mistakes. Mr. Peterson left us alone in his office for a few minutes. Angela and I sat in silence, processing everything that had happened. Mom, I want you to know something. Even if you didn't have all this money, even if you were really the poor widow I thought you were, I would have learned the same lesson. What lesson? That there's nothing more valuable than having someone who loves you unconditionally. During these past few weeks, the only thing that kept me sane was knowing I had a home with you. That no matter how much I'd ruined my life, you were still my mother. That will never change, Angela. I know, but I also know I can never take that love for granted again. I have to earn it every day, with respect, with gratitude, with actions, not just words. We left Mr. Peterson's office with a completely new relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by blood and habit. We were two grown women who had chosen each other after going through the most difficult test imaginable. The following weeks were about rebuilding, but not the kind Angela expected. Even though she now knew I had enough resources to solve all her problems, she decided to keep her night cleaning job. Mom, I need to finish what I started, she told me one afternoon as she got ready for work. I can't just go back to a comfortable life as if nothing happened. Are you sure? You don't have to punish yourself forever. It's not a punishment. It's a way of remembering who I was and who I want to be now. I watched her put on her work uniform, something unthinkable a few months ago when she lived in that luxury condo with Edward. But there was something different in her posture. In the way she moved. She was no longer the broken woman who'd arrived crying at my door. She was someone who'd found dignity in honest work. 6 months later, our life had found a new balance neither of us could have imagined before. Angela finished her social work studies with excellent grades, and I decided to use some of my resources to establish a foundation to help women in situations of domestic violence and financial abandonment. Mom, the letter from the university arrived, Angela said one morning, coming into the kitchen with an envelope. I was accepted into the master's program. I start next semester. That's wonderful, honey. But Mom, I want you to know I'm going to pay for it with my own savings. I've been saving from my job at the city. The salary wasn't high, but she'd learned to live with the essentials, to value every dollar she earned. Are you sure? We can easily afford the master's program. I know, but I need to do it on my own. It's part of who I am now. That night, Angela and I had dinner on the porch, something that had become a tradition. Our time to talk about the day, plan for the future, simply enjoy each other's company. Mom, I received a very strange letter today, she said, cutting her salad. From whom? From Edward. My muscles tensed. Edward, he wrote to you? From where? From prison in France. Apparently he was sentenced to 2 years for marriage fraud. In the letter he says he regrets everything he did and wants to ask for my forgiveness. And how do you feel about it? Honestly, I don't feel anything. No anger, no sadness, no desire for revenge. It's as if that part of my life happened decades ago, not months ago. Are you going to write back? No, not because I hate him, but because there's nothing to say. That Angela who married him no longer exists. This Angela has nothing to talk to him about. I was impressed by the maturity in her voice. The woman sitting across from me had developed an inner strength that came from hitting rock bottom and getting up on her own. Do you know what this whole experience taught me, Mom? What? That true love isn't the one that tells you what you want to hear. True love is the one that teaches you what you need to learn, even when it hurts. It's a difficult lesson to learn. Edward told me what I wanted to hear. He made me feel special. He convinced me I deserved a life of luxury without effort. You taught me that true wealth comes from hard work, respect, and genuine relationships. That night, after Angela went to study, I sat on the porch alone, looking at the stars, thinking about Robert. I'd promised him I'd take care of our daughter, and I finally felt I'd fulfilled that promise, in the right way. I hadn't taken care of her by giving her money when she needed it. I'd taken care of her by teaching her to take care of herself. I hadn't saved her by solving her problems. I'd saved her by allowing her to learn to solve them on her own. The next day was Sunday. We planned to visit the beach house together for the first time since I'd gotten it back. Angela hadn't wanted to go before, said she needed time to process everything that had happened. Are you ready? I asked as we got into the truck. I think so. The trip was silent, but comfortable. When we arrived, Angela stood for a moment in the truck, looking at the house where we'd spent so many family summers. "It looks exactly the same," she said finally. "Some things don't change. But I'm not the same person who sold this house." We went in together. The house was clean and tidy, exactly as Robert and I had kept it for years. Angela walked through each room, touching the furniture, looking at family photos on the walls. "Mom, I want to apologize." "You already apologized, honey." "No, I want to apologize specifically for this house. Not just for selling it, but for reducing all our family memories to a commercial transaction. It's forgiven." This house represents 40 years of family summers, of birthdays, of Christmases. Dad built that porch with his own hands. You planted that garden. I learned to swim at that beach. And I turned it all into money to fund the adventure of a worthless man. She sat on the sofa where Robert used to read on Sunday mornings. "Do you know what hurts me the most?" "What?" "That when I sold it, I didn't feel anything. It was just another property. Now, being here again, I can feel Dad in every corner. I can hear his laughter, smell his morning coffee, see his reading glasses on the table. He's here, Angela. He's always been here." "I know, and I also know he's proud of how you handled all of this." We spent the whole day at the house, cooking together, cleaning, fixing small details. It was like a ritual of reconnection, not just with the place, but with the values that place represented. When the sun began to set, we sat on the porch Robert had built, looking at the ocean. "Mom, I have a proposal." "What is it?" "I want us to turn this house into a temporary shelter for women leaving situations of domestic violence, a place where they can stay while they rebuild their lives." It was the perfect proposal. Robert would have loved the idea that his beach house would serve to help other families. "I think that's a beautiful idea, honey. We can use some of the foundation's resources to maintain it, and I can oversee the program through my job. Are you sure you want to turn our family sanctuary into that, Mom? The best sanctuaries are the ones that are shared. Dad always said a house isn't truly a home until it opens its doors to other people who need love." He was right. Robert had always been generous with our home, inviting relatives, friends, neighbors who needed a place to stay. We returned home that night with a new project and a completely renewed relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by obligation or need. We were two women who had consciously chosen to build a life together based on love, respect, and a common purpose. That night, before falling asleep, I spoke to Robert in silence. "We did it, my love. Our daughter finally understood what truly matters." And for the first time since his death, I felt he answered me. "I always knew you would. You're both stronger than you think." Justice had arrived, not as revenge, but as education, not as punishment, but as transformation. And in the end, we'd both gained something much more valuable than money. We'd gained an authentic relationship built on a solid foundation that no future crisis could destroy. What would you do if your own family tried to steal everything from you? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from.